Hello everybody and welcome to the 12th Canadian Science Policy Conference 2020 edition. Due to the global impact of COVID-19, to prioritize health and safety, the conference has been moved to an entirely digital format, which includes our interview series. Our guest here is Dr. Rob Annan, who is the President and CEO of Genome Canada. Dr. Annan, thank you for joining us for this interview today.
Great, I'm glad to be here, Wendy.
Let's get right into it. So this is a big year for Genome Canada, what with it being its 20th anniversary. How have the organization and its strategic priorities evolved over time to adapt to the changing science policy landscape?
Sure, yeah, we're very excited about the 20th anniversary this year. A lot has changed in those 20 years. If we cast our mind back 20 years ago, that was really the time when the Human Genome Project was sort of coming to its conclusion. Very exciting time for genomics, kind of early days. Human Genome Project, a massive international effort, took about 15 years, almost $2 billion to sequence that human genome. Well, today, we can sequence a human genome in about 24 hours for about $1,000. So things have certainly changed in those 20 years. In those early days, we were actually created in response to that project, which in fact Canada wasn't a participant in. So Canadian scientists got together and said, we better make sure that we create some kind of mechanism to ensure that that Canadian scientists can take advantage of this really exciting new science. So we were created 20 years ago, really by kind of the actions of this grassroots group of researchers. And in those early days, our function was really to, in a sense, kind of help seed the ecosystem, invest in infrastructure, physical infrastructure, which has led to these really fantastic sequencing centers and other platforms, but also the human infrastructure, investing in researchers who would, in a sense, create the Canadian landscape. So, today, of course, we have a strong and thriving ecosystem of researchers working in genomics and other associated biosciences. And so we have, in a sense, kind of evolved alongside that community from the early kind of capacity building days to a phase where we're much more focused now on making sure that we can deploy the knowledge and the technologies to achieve really important and significant impacts.
Indeed, it must be rewarding when you see all the changes that are being implemented. Building on that history, what are some of the biggest accomplishments looking back over the past 2 decades, and what are you most excited about in the coming years?
So in terms of what I'm most excited about, it's actually, I have to say, it's the community of researchers that have grown up in Canada, from all the Genome Canada funded projects. It's a remarkable group. I'm constantly blown away by the scope of the research that's happening. World-class researchers participating in all sorts of important international initiatives. Strength that allowed us, for instance, to respond very effectively to the COVID response, very quickly to the COVID response. And so for me, I think the most exciting thing is actually looking at the community that has been built up in Canada that is really world-class, top of the world. I'm also, one of the things I'm really proud about is that Genome Canada from its beginnings has always been multi-sectoral and multidisciplinary. It's unique globally for an organization like this to not simply be focused on health, for instance, but rather to have, yes, half of our work is in health, but the other half is in agriculture and natural resources and fisheries and forestry and the environment. And the ability to work broadly across these sectors allows us to do a lot of kind of cross-fertilizing and so on. But we also see that by being such a multidisciplinary organization. About 15% of our funding goes to work in the social sciences. And right at the very beginning, Genome Canada pioneered something we call GELS, which is genomics and its economic, environmental, ethical, legal, and social impacts. So this is really about not just doing technology development and hoping for the best, but making sure that we're also looking at what are the impacts on society? What are the social implications of the technologies we're developing? How do we make sure that they're being put to use in a way that's really going to benefit people? So those are just a couple of things I'm really excited about what we've done in the past. Looking forward, as I said off the top, this is an exciting time for genomics. We're at a point now where we're sequencing, individuals to the point where we can do population studies rather than just individual studies. We're also generating just enormous amounts of data, not just in genomics, but in affiliated areas like proteomics, metabolomics. So this data we're able to now analyze, whether it's by using AI tools or other bioinformatics, in a way that's opening up kind of new discoveries. And then you put that together with new technologies like the recent Nobel Prize winning CRISPR technology or synthetic biology. And we're at a point, I really believe that these next 20 years, we're going to see a revolution in the life sciences that will transform the way we live. And to be part of an organization that's going to be able to help shepherd in that transformation is really, really exciting.
Well, it definitely sounds like there are lots of things to be proud of and lots of things to look forward to. So next, we would be amiss if we did not address the current pandemic situation. What have been some of the core activities that Genome Canada has invested in regarding COVID-19, and have any early results emerged?
Yeah, so again, right out of the gate, I would say we were led by our research community. So researchers across the country in genomics as well as other areas, of course, quickly mobilized to say, how can we help with this, with the pandemic? How can we help develop, diagnostics, therapeutics, vaccines, and so on? So it was, for us, it was really, the key was to actually understand what was happening in the community, and then to ask, how can we help? So we partnered with CIHR, NSERC, CFAR, other research organizations in various competitions to ensure that funding was going to really promising research projects. But the flagship initiative that came out of our work was really something called the Canadian COVID-19 Genomics Network, or what we call CanCAGEM, which is a two-part project, one of which is to sequence viral samples across the country, up to 150,000 viral samples from patients, to use the evolution of the viral genome to help us understand, outbreaks, sort of do surveillance, track and trace, understand the dynamics, both in terms of transmission, but also in terms of viral evolution for vaccine development. And then the other part is to work with CGen, the sequencing facilities in the country, to look at host genetics, and what are the genetic factors that make some people so susceptible and have such awful symptoms, whereas others can be asymptomatic. So this is a project that that was launched within a few weeks, actually, of COVID-19 arriving in Canada. It's supported by the federal government with $40 million dedicated to helping produce information that's really feeding in already now into the public health decision making. So this is a very kind of real-time project. But in terms of, while this is kind of a rapid response, shall we call it, this rapid response was really 20 years in the making, and it's only because of the sustained investments that both federal and provincial governments have made in this kind of research that we had the capacity internally to be able to move so quickly.
Well, that sounds like a combination of quick work and also excellent long-term planning.
Yeah, exactly.
Now, looking into the future, and considering this year's special conference theme, which is Grand Challenges, what do you see as the major challenges facing Canada in the next decade? And how can science policy be positioned to address this?
So I think clearly we're still in the midst of one of the biggest challenges that our generation will face with COVID-19. And so certainly, I'm blown away by the scope of work being done by researchers across the country, by public health units, by governments in dealing with the actual pandemic on the ground. And that will need to be a major focus until we have that under control. Coming out of that, of course, the economic recovery is going to be challenging. And I think science policy will play an important role in helping make sure that we're building an economy that's ready for the 21st century and not simply rebuilding for the 20th century. And so how do we work with industry? How do we work across sectors to make sure that they build back in a way that's going to help us prepare for the future? Going forward, though, I think there are some really big challenges. Certainly, climate change is an ongoing, wicked problem where we are going to need to bring together science and policy, policy for science, science for policy, in a way to help us to deal with its impacts and help to also kind of reduce our climate footprint. So that's going to be a major challenge. And then I think more broadly, there's a big social question, and we get into here issues around inequities in science, both in terms of who's participating, but also who benefits. And I think this is a question that we haven't maybe done a deep dive on as a community of scientists in the past, but this question of moving beyond kind of like a trickle-down theory of science, where we invest and then the benefits just sort of dissipate through society, towards asking ourselves some serious questions about how do we make sure that we aren't contributing to inequities, that we are ensuring that there's going to be broad social benefit, and start asking not just who does the science, but who is the science for. And that gets to a deeper question around the social compact for science. Science in this country is largely funded by the public, and going forward, we're seeing some worrying signs in terms of the public's relationship with science, and whether that's through climate change denial, whether that's through vaccine hesitancy or other areas. I think we, as a community of scientists, of science policy practitioners, need to start thinking about how do we either rebuild that social compact, or how do we strengthen it in a way that that the public sees science as a force for good, that sees an impact in their lives, and remains supportive of all of the benefits that we're quite confident science can bring to the table.
For sure, and that's where communication definitely plays an important role, doesn't it?
Absolutely.
Finally, the CSPC is very thankful for the support of Genome Canada and for your support as an active member of the CSPC community. What do you see as the biggest benefit and value of attending and supporting the CSPC?
Well, I am I have proudly attended every CSPC conference since its founding, and I can think back to those early days, which is right when I was moving out of academia and into policy work. And at the time, there wasn't a lot of conversation happening, at least not in a more public way, about the role policy plays for science and the role science can make in policy making. And so what I think has been absolutely crucial that CSPC has done such a great job of is providing a forum for those conversations to help make explicit what we have often thought of as implicit, this social compact I was just talking about, where we just assume that the public will continue to fund science because science is good. Well, this provides a venue for us to say, okay, let's unpack that a little bit, right? Let's actually look at some of the ways science does help the public. Let's look at where some of the challenges are and have a conversation. I think it's absolutely crucial that that a forum like this exists to make that implicit sort of assumptions much more explicit, and also to provide a forum for networking and the development of the kind of next generation of science policy practitioners. So it's been, I think CSPC has done great work up till now, and we're excited to watch what it does in the future.
I guess that kind of goes back to the theme of communication. Thank
Absolutely.
you for that note. And thank you again, Dr. Annan, for your time. Congratulations again to Genome Canada on its 20th anniversary. We hope you enjoy the conference and look forward to many more things to come.
Thanks, Wendi. It was a pleasure.